And welcome everybody to the Lakers Outsiders podcast. This is our first podcast of the season. We've got a full house for you tonight of very many, a lot of different age groups apparently. Starting with kind of sort of the guest on our podcast tonight from Silver Screen and Roll and Locked On Lakers, Anthony Irwin. Anthony, how's it going?
And we're live. No, it's great to join everybody. It feels weird to be a guest on my old show.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if you can technically be a guest to a show that you founded, but hey, I guess that's what we're going with.
I'm one of like 73 guests too. So.
All right, we're going to go from the oldest person on this podcast to the youngest person who literally just joined us probably like 30 seconds ago, Grant Goldberg. Grant, what's going on, man?
None, just shooting my shot. I mean, it's past my bedtime for the reason that I'm young. That's past Anthony's bedtime because he's old.
I was going to say, you're going to have to whisper on the podcast. You don't wake up your parents and get in trouble. All right, and then also joining us is Hani Amadi. And Hani, you were tweeting the game tonight. How much fun was that?
Wait, there was a game tonight?
Was a lot of fun. The only disappointing part was that I realized I probably should have written in Luke Walton on my voting ballot.
He's just barely old enough. So, I mean, I still got a chance to do that. No, I was going to go with Kobe, but Luke's looking like a more promising option there. and then last but certainly, well, possibly least, is Jacob Rude. Jacob, what's going on?
I don't see why we couldn't just go with a Luke and Kobe ticket. So, I mean, that's probably what I'm going to write in on Tuesday.
Nice, good man.
There you go. I mean, if you wouldn't vote for that, I mean, you're just not American, right? So.
Has a presidential candidate ever murdered their running mate? Like, that ever happened?
Death stared them into oblivion.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know, there was a game tonight. Anthony apparently didn't know, but the Lakers crushed the Golden State Warriors tonight, 117-97. And they led wire to wire. Definitely the most surprising game so far in the young season. Hani, like I mentioned, you tweeted the game. I mean, what were the kind of the main takeaways, the things that really just jumped out at you?
I think the thing that I liked the most about this game was in the fact that they got out to like a 20-point lead. But once the Warriors actually kind of started playing a lot harder and kind of turning it on, I think it was late second quarter, early in the second half, they made it a pretty close game, and then the Lakers were able to kind of get the groove back, and D'Angelo Russell was a big part of that, getting the offense going a little bit more, and then kind of keeping that lead and then building up on it later in the half. I think that was the most impressive part, I think, of the win for me.
Yeah, and that's something that I've kind of talked about. I've tweeted out a couple times, and Anthony, I'm sure you've noticed this too. This team doesn't really get rattled by runs from opposing teams, and that's something that is totally different from last year, right?
Yep. Last year was one of those situations where like they would be on a 5-0 run and you would know that a 12-0 run would be coming. and this year it's kind of cool. Like they'll be down, double digits or whatever. And then all of a sudden you'll kind of look up at the score and it'll be a 4-point game, a 5-point game, whatever. Tonight they kind of jumped out to an early lead, and I thought to myself, well, this is new territory. Like we'll see where this kind of takes us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like even when the Warriors kind of threw their haymakers, the Lakers still found ways to answer back, and that's not something that you would necessarily see from a young team going against a team as talented as even a hungover Warriors team.
Yeah, Jacob. I mean, I think that's the thing that's most surprising by it. Obviously, there's a new coaching staff in place, but the fact that this team is so young and they just don't seem to get rattled by these runs. I mean, is that a trait that you kind of expected from this team this year?
Not even in the least bit. I thought that would be kind of one of their downfalls, if anything. Like, this isn't something that young teams do. And even tonight we saw them kind of absorb every run that Golden State made and then answer back. And then I think we've seen in their road trip that it's also a team that can come from behind as well. I think resilience. I mean, just the word I think of, and they never give up, and they're a team where you're always kind of like, well, I know they have one more run in them at least, or something to that effect. So it's been surprising just how resilient they've been this early, 6 games in.
Well, so you didn't, Jacob, you didn't think that they would be this? Because I actually thought that having a coach that they didn't openly loathe, like, would make them play hard even when they were down. Like last year, if they were down 7 points and then I'm allowed to say Byron on here, right? Like, it's the fine system doesn't work.
I'm gonna text Harrison right now.
But like, they'd be 7, and Byron would call a timeout and scream at them to man up, and they'd be, at the end of that timeout, they just walk away with their middle fingers up, and then it'd be a 13-point lead. And this year, I kind of noticed where they'll be on the bad end of a run, and Luke will call a timeout, and they'll kind of get the ship righted a bit. They'll run a good set. That was one thing that I noticed tonight, was that they would run a good set, get a good look, and then find a way to get more momentum. I actually kind of thought that they would have a lot more resiliency than we saw last year.
Well, and the thing with coaching was, I mentioned this last year when the Lakers were at Portland for Kobe's last game up there. During one of the timeouts, Byron literally spent the entire timeout just staring up into the crowd, like he wasn't coaching. Like, the players were over there just by themselves, just kind of hanging out.
He had just gotten to Twitter, I think. He was sliding in some DMs.
Well, and I went to the
smoke signals.
And I went to the Jazz game, the second game of the year this year, and that was just the thing with Luke, is he's so vocal. We know kind of how laid back he is and all that, but I think he just, and Grant, you can kind of talk about this a little bit. But I mean, he just seems to have the right balance between, when he needs to be vocal and when he kind of needs to sit back, right?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that he connects to the players on a level that, when it's fun. But when it's time to get serious, they listen to him, and they put the game faces on, and they're ready to go to battle for him.
Yeah, and like I said, I noticed that with the Utah game, he seems to be in the officials' ear a lot, right, Anthony? Have you kind of noticed that he's kind of pandering with officials a lot?
I just think it's a desire to be active on the sideline. He wants to talk to somebody, period. And the other thing that I was going to build on with Grant's point was how active and how much he trusts the coaching staff that he's compiled, where there are no wasted moments with that coaching staff. Whereas like last year, let me rephrase, this year at the end of the season, you're going to hear some of the names that are involved with this current team, and you're going to see some other teams interested in those guys because of the roles that they played this year. Whereas at the end of last year, not a single person who was involved with the Lakers last year, nobody said to themselves, hey, I got to have Byron Scott's son as my, on my coaching staff. There's nobody in of those assistant coaches that anybody really was dying to hire. And just watch, like, Mermes is going to get some buzz. You're gonna look around, and some of these guys, because of how active they are, because of the strides these Lakers are taking forward, some of these guys are going to get some offers that I don't think people quite see coming.
Right. And we're quick, obviously, to give the head coach a lot of the credit or a lot of the blame, in regards to like the last 2 years. But yeah, like you mentioned, Anthony, just the staff is so improved from the last 2 years that, obviously Luke Walton deserves a ton of credit for kind of just changing the culture of this team and changing just really everything around them. But yeah, that staff from top to bottom, Jacob, like Anthony was saying, the staff has just been outstanding, right? Have you had any issues with them?
No, and I'll kind of go off something that he said, and that's something I noticed. I was at the Pacers game on Tuesday, and I know Anthony had mentioned this in one of their pods before, but it was so, I guess, kind of refreshing to see, like, during timeouts, during free throws, dead ball situations. It always seemed like Luke was talking to one guy, and then somebody else on the staff was talking to another guy. And, like, on Tuesday, they had the whole clock fiasco and everything, and that was, like, seconds into the game. And Luke is standing there next to Julius, just kind of pointing on the floor. You can see that he's kind of instructing him on stuff even already. So, and that's the point Anthony made, where Luke just always is talking to somebody, which is just such a stark contrast to Mr. Crossed Arms from the last 2 years, who didn't say a word to anybody. So it's just refreshing to see. I mean, this coaching staff versus what we had is just night and day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. We had Mr. Crossed Arms the last 2 years. Luke, I've noticed, is always holding a sheet of paper or maybe two. I don't know exactly what it is, if he's got like a stat sheet or if it's just something to take notes during the game or something, but I've noticed that's kind of his thing. But I have no complaints with Walton. Well, Luke, you can hold a damn notebook if you want to.
They're his weed notes. That's what he's looking for, like, after the game. I need to find out who I'm going to call. I need to know which city I'm in, who I'm going to look up after this game.
And Vermes has the backup too.
Oh man, one of the things that we joked about while we were in Vegas was trying to put together a skit of what a coach's meeting might sound like, with Brian Shaw rapping, Murmy sounding like Tony Hawk, and Luke Walton ordering weed. Like, it's just
with Mark Madsen just sitting in the corner.
Mark Madsen's just doing push-ups.
It's pretty much the greatest SNL skit you'll ever see in your life.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the coaching staff, and going into the season, we kind of mentioned that the players would benefit, tremendously from just a change in coaching, getting actual NBA coaching. And a lot of the guys the whole team looks just improved pretty much from top to bottom. Hani, who's the guy to you that looks the most improved with this coaching staff?
I think even when we were talking about it in the preseason, talking about which player we thought would improve the most or would benefit the most from having a new coaching staff, I said Julius Randle, and so far that seems to be the case. He's improved his finishing around the rim, which I think is the most important part. And then he's also so much more under control when he has the ball. I think we always knew that he was a good passer, but he didn't have the vision to kind of complement that passing, and he just, burst into a bunch of defenders on his way to the rim and bounce off guys and try to throw up a wild shot. Today, there was one play that really stuck out. I think it was, I don't remember when it was, but it was late in the game, and he got the ball in transition. He's got like a 3-on-2, and he drew the defense, and he passed it basically behind him to Lou Williams on the three-point line, because he just knew where Lou Will would be for that open three, and he took his time to make sure that he drew the defense long enough to be able to get that open shot. And that would never happen last year, and he just looks so much better at controlling the game that way.
Yeah, Grant. I guess that's the biggest difference in his play to me, is he looks so much more unselfish than he did a year ago. I think last year it was such, obviously heavy isolation offensive basketball that, when he caught it, he just naturally looked to kind of bulldoze his way to the rim. But this year there's a lot of times where he almost looks like he doesn't want to shoot, like he wants to pass, right? Like, have you noticed that?
Yeah, I've seen that, because it's such a stark contrast from last year, where he'd get the ball and he'd just put his head down and try to get to the hole and put the ball in the bucket. And this year, I feel like he's kind of just slowed down in his mind and opened his eyes and surveys the court and notices everything that's around him, sees an open teammate. There's actually one point in the game today where I was frustrated, where he got an offensive rebound, I think, and he took a little bit to pass it, and I kind of said to myself, Julius, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you passing the ball? because he was doing such a great job of that in the first few games that he's played in the season.
Mhm.
And I kind of realized to myself, I'm telling myself that he should pass it for a good reason instead of, because I'm used to him passing it now instead of him, like you said, bulldozing his way to the rim.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest things. And I think, Anthony, that was probably one of the bigger issues that and I mean, a lot of fans had with him last year was that he was really a ball movement killer. And, that's kind of a habit that you don't want to teach a young player. But, I mean, do you think kind of the way he's played these first 6 games is kind of what we should expect moving forward? Or you think there's still going to be those moments where the ball kind of sticks?
Well, I think what Luke has done a really good job of is understand, like, one thing that I'm really impressed with Luke is, and this is a brand new theory that I'm thinking of kind of on the fly here, so we'll see where it takes me. But
Can't wait.
but when you look down the roster and all these guys, they're all high end prospects with, outside of Nance and Clarkson or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So D'Angelo Russell has always had the basketball in his hands, and Brandon Ingram has always had the ball in his hands. Julius Randle has always had the ball in his hands. And what Luke has done is, by kind of staggering their minutes together, he allows it so he makes it so that all those guys have the ball in their hands as much as they can when they're on the court. And for Julius Randle, he isn't put in a spot where he's the second pass that leads to a corner 3. Like, that's not what he's asked to do, because that's not what his instincts tell him to do. When he catches a ball, he still wants to hesitate a little bit.
Mhm.
But what Luke has done is he's put him in spots where it's beneficial for him to do that hesitation, to take that hesitation. And I think as much credit as Randall deserves for continuing to expand his game, I think Luke deserves credit for putting him in positions where he's best suited to actually do what comes most naturally to him. So I think it's a two-sided. There's a combination of things that's going on there that is why, and it makes me think that it's more sustainable, that Julius Randle's play is more sustainable, because
Mhm.
it isn't just on him what he's done so far.
Right. I mean, like you said, everybody just looks comfortable this year. And last year, the offense was literally, when he played, get Kobe the ball. Just get Kobe the ball and get out of the way.
Right.
And now,
Yeah, D'Angelo even said that once.
yeah, and the thing that I've noticed this year is, like, you don't really know on any given night who's going to lead the Lakers offensively. Like, it could be a number of guys, because this offense, it's such a balanced attack that it's a complete 180 from last year, where it was like, okay, Kobe's playing, he's probably going to take the brunt of the shots, and then who knows after that. And this year, yeah, it's such a mixed combination that it's so refreshing to see that. We're getting basically the opposite brand of basketball that we saw the last 2 years. So, Jake,
I almost want to get that Photoshop that I made of Byron holding the board or whatever, and he just wiped out the entire floor and said, "Kobe, go do your thing," and then everybody else is kind of standing in the corner. I almost want to get that, like, Sarah McLachlan songs, like, "I will remember." Because and they scored 117 points tonight, and their highest scorers scored 20 points apiece. It makes it so much harder to guard down the stretch.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing I noticed also. The season opener was that no Laker played more than 29 minutes. Like, the rotation was balanced, the scoring was balanced. It's just, it's crazy to see such a young team have such good habits, such good qualities about them, and yeah, it's pretty remarkable to see. But Jacob, would you agree that Randall's been kind of the most surprising player in terms of improvement, or do you think it's been somebody else?
Randall's been great, and I think one thing that I think Anthony just said was that they're being put in positions to succeed, whereas last year it was, I don't even know what you call our offense last year. I put them in isolations, I guess. I don't know. They obviously weren't put into positions to succeed. But yeah, he's been, I would say, if not our best player through the first 6 games, our most consistent. At this point, you know pretty much what you're going to get. And there's a lot of things he's doing that he hasn't done in years before. Like another play tonight, I know the fast break where he dished it out to Lou is something he would have never done. And he had another play late where I think he got a long rebound, or he got the ball at the top of the key, took one dribble and shot a pull-up jumper that he made that I don't know that he ever would have attempted last year. He would have just put his head down, run into the paint, and hope for a foul or try to put something up. So it's been this – the player that Julius Randle is now is the one that we were hoping we would get 2 years ago. Obviously, the injury sidetracked everything, but it's awesome to see him playing closer to the potential that we kind of expected of him.
Well, and the thing that I've really liked about him is, obviously it's still a work in progress, and with the whole team it is, but defensively, I think he's done just a much better job than I anticipated with his ability to kind of just switch out on the perimeter and just kind of take, guards. I mean, we saw it with Dennis Schroeder in the Hawks game. They switch off that pick and roll, and then he drives on Randle, and Randle blocks his shot. And then he had a big block today that kind of triggered a bucket on the other end against Draymond Green. Randle's not going to be obviously like a rim protector type player, but I think his ability, his mobility combined with just his strength and his size. It gives the Lakers another option where they can just kind of switch a lot of things on defense, and it's just kind of outstanding to see the improvement on that end as well in his first season under with this coaching staff in the system. So it's been something. That's for sure.
It doesn't necessarily match up with the skill set. Like when I watch Jordan Clarkson, when you look at Jordan Clarkson, his athletic tools, he looks like he's going to be a good defender, but I never really thought that with Randle. I thought he had good feet, but his arms are kind of short. He's not a really physical he's not a very vertical guy. So I didn't know necessarily what kind of defender he would be, but his lateral quickness has somehow improved, which doesn't necessarily happen in the NBA.
Yeah. And
his hand placement continues to be a lot better. And that was something that I and Pete Zayas and I spoke about before the season, that like his hand placement needs to get a lot better. And he somehow improved both of those things in 6 games. That's insane.
I think that goes back to what you're saying about Luke putting him in the right position to succeed.
How so?
Yeah.
About just going over things in practice, what to do with his body instead of just sticking man to man and hoping to follow. Like they put him in places where he can switch off to anybody who has the ball, and so if he's in the right place at the right time, he'll be able to know where to put his hand, and he can shift over if he's not in the right place.
Yeah, the defensive schemes have obviously been, much better this year. And, you look at some of the point totals and, they're really high, and, to kind of your casual NBA fan, they're like, oh, they're not, improved on defense. They gave up 114 points or, whatever. But I tweeted this out right after the game. The Lakers this year are 10th in offensive efficiency and 17th in defensive efficiency, which, 17th you think out of 30 teams. It's not great. But considering last year with this group, they were 29th and 30th in those same categories. Pretty much dead last in the league. Just it's a small sample size, obviously, but to see that leap of improvement, just that gap that they've kind of built is, it's almost baffling. To be able – so I expected them to have to really, really work throughout the season to get better defensively. But, you see it. They're still, like I said, a work in progress. But there's a lot of improvement there. So
one more thing. I think there's something to be said about the fact that these guys want to play for Luke, and they want to play hard for Luke. I just look at Nick Young. That's another player we haven't mentioned about. He's been really improved, but – he's one of our better perimeter defenders, and he tries basically, which is especially defensively not something he's done or he did under Byron.
Yeah.
And even on the offensive end, like tonight, he had a big offensive putback, which is still just weird to say that Nick Young had an offensive rebound and a putback that led to a timeout. Like that, before this year, I don't know that stat ever actually happened. So it's just stuff like
Luke
that.
Williams had a steal and dunked on the other end. My jaw dropped.
All right, so we're 6 games in.
Could I say one more thing though regarding Nick Young?
Yeah, no, go
So
ahead.
you talked about the putback, and even when Mike D'Antoni was the coach, the most pumped you ever saw Nick Young was after he made like an and one from 3, right? Or after something happened on offense. It was always something that happened offensively. But tonight, I think it was Klay Thompson. I'm pretty sure it was Klay Thompson, but he sent a shot flying tonight, and that was the most pumped that I have seen Nick Young all season. And you're talking about a complete shift in the way somebody thinks about the game of basketball. Like just on that alone, not only should Luke Walton win Coach of the Year, he should get a Nobel Prize. He should be our president. Like just on that alone, he deserves a lot of credit for getting somebody to completely rethink what it takes to be successful in basketball. We haven't seen that from Nick Young in the 3-4 years that he's been in Los Angeles. That was cool to see.
And that was the crazy thing was, I think we all kind of anticipated, and the reports were coming out that, if the Lakers couldn't find a trade suitor for Nick Young, that, they would just cut him and let him go. And like all of a sudden he's in the starting lineup. He's playing well. He's playing hard on both ends. And, that's the power of coaching in the NBA. I think we're seeing it. I think a lot of people said last year, anybody can coach the Warriors when they're kind of discrediting Luke Walton. And it's like, that might be the case. But, obviously with this team, it just goes to show how important coaching is, especially with a young group like this one. So, all right, like I said, 6 games in, we obviously have a long way to go. But I think we're all kind of surprised in a good way, finally, with how the Lakers have started a season. Hani, I'll throw it to you first. We all kind of expected about 25 to 30 wins, I think, this year with this team. Is it too early, or is it time to kind of start thinking they might win, more games than that?
So my prediction on this podcast was 25. And I think it's fair to say that 25 would be their floor at this point. And it would be, I don't want to say disappointing just because the wins don't necessarily matter, but it would be a tiny bit disappointing if they only ended up at 25 after what we've seen in 6 games. But at the same time, I saw a lot of people tweeting about the playoffs today, and I'm like, you should simmer down a little bit. As great as that win was, playoffs might be a little bit too tough to get to.
I told you to unfollow my alternate account.
I thought this morning. No, yesterday morning. When Pete and I wrapped up our show yesterday, I told this, which just defeats the purpose of saying this while not recording. But I woke up the other day and I thought to myself, hey, like the playoffs would be kind of fun, like that. And I immediately, kind of shot myself down. Like there's no chance in hell. Like they could still play in the Western Conference. But what I think a fair expectation is that with a month or a couple weeks to go in the end of the season, that the Lakers can still be in the playoff equation. They can still be kind of pushing for a playoff spot. Now, that's not to say that they're actually going to get one, but it's a nice change from over the last couple of years when you get to the All-Star break and you're like, what the should I actually watch for now?
Yeah, I was going to say,
there's no reason to watch anymore.
It's different than being eliminated, at the beginning of February.
We were eliminated from the playoff hunt at this point last year.
I think Ty tweeted today that they didn't get their third win till December last season.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but going to back to the playoff conversation, like Anthony was saying, like he said, the idea of the playoffs is far fetched, but to think of this team in a 7-game series, this team last year would have lost in a sweep, maybe win one game on dumb luck, but if they lost, say, the opening game of the series, it'd be so interesting to see, the adjustments that are made and how this team, rebounds from a loss and comes together. Because it's such a completely different brand of basketball, from the coaching to the players, that alone, just seeing the improvement and adjustments from game 1 to game 2 would be something to marvel at.
Yeah, and this is and Jacob, I mean, we've talked about their start. I mean, they had 6 games to start the season against teams that a lot of people think are going to be in the playoffs this year, both in the in the West and the East. And 4 of those games are on the road, and they won 3 out of those 6 games, and all 3 losses. Those games were kind of there for the taking in the end, and now their next 6 games are against opponents that they probably should beat now. I mean, how crucial is this next stretch of games for them to kind of not have that letdown and just keep pushing forward and start beating these teams that they now that we kind of expect them to beat?
Yeah, I mean, to first talk about the games that we played, I mean, the 3 losses we have, 2 of them were because Russell Westbrook and Paul George decided to play like the all-stars that they are, the all-NBA players they are, and that's just kind of the difference that was separating us from them right now. But I think we'll learn a lot about this team in these next 6 games or whatever, because it's one thing to go into a game with the expectation that you're not going to win, as opposed to what's going to come these next 6 games, where there's going to be some games at this point where they're going to be expected to win. So not playing down to your opponent's level or something to that effect, to be able to still execute even when you're expected to win, is something that, I mean, if they still execute like they have against some of these teams that they should beat, and we win 4, even 5 of these games, even I'd take 500 at this point, win 3 of them. But if we win 4 or 5 of these games, I think at that point is when you kind of sit back and think, well, maybe we really need to readjust expectations, because right now, at least to me mentally, I'm still kind of writing it off as, we're young, we're energetic, we went into every game with nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a fun, week and a half, but at some point it's going to catch up to us. If we go to the next 6 games and, I can't do math right now, 8-5 or whatever it is after this stretch, 8-4 or whatever, I think that's when you can kind of start to readjust expectations.
Right. And that's kind of the crazy thing. I was actually thinking about earlier today with the Lakers. I was like, there's 3 teams that come to mind that when this team is playing them, I just kind of naturally think they've got no shot at beating them. And they beat one of those teams tonight. So, I mean, it's pretty insane, just kind of the turnaround from a year ago, where you kind of knew going into some of those games, there's no way in hell the Lakers are going to win this game. And I mean, they've been just super, super competitive this year, and yeah, it's crazy. I guess we can just do a rapid fire real quick. Anthony, you'll start it off. Has your win total or your win projection for this team changed? And if so, what is it now?
Well, I got to do some math. They've lost 3. 79-3 is what I have them at now.
Good.
No, I still have them. I said that they would win about 27 to 30 games. That's kind of what I thought they would win. Now, if they get upwards, if the thing that we're watching right now is that this is the first time they're playing any of these teams, right?
Yeah.
So, like Grant, you talked about the style of play that they're playing. Eventually, that's going to catch up to them. Scouting is going to take place, and these teams are going to figure out, all right, what's it going to take? How should we play these guys differently? Especially if the Lakers are so happy to be balanced, can we focus on making one guy beat us, right? That's when we're going to find out what the Lakers are really capable of, when we start seeing different kinds of defenses. So I still think that while it's fun to get ahead of ourselves, and why not get ahead of ourselves given where we're coming from over the last couple of years, I still don't think that, we're going to look at a 40-win team or a 35-win team. I could still, a 33-win team, given the fact that we're coming off of 17 wins, is quite the jump. And I think that that's still within the realm of possibility. But I don't want to doubt these guys.
You reserve the right to change that later on.
Yeah, that's the thing. Why do somebody on a show that I forget who it was, but they said something along the lines of like, I have to hold true to my preseason prediction. Like, why would you do that? Like, you haven't seen a game yet. Like, like if I thought like the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs right now, and they're sitting at 0-5, I'm like, come on, Mavericks! It sounds like a terrible way to watch basketball. So yeah, I do think that it's highly possible that the Lakers even exceed my even higher expectations of them. And that makes it all the more fun.
I'm going to need that soundbite of Anthony just yelling, come on, Mavericks, to use for the rest of the year. Grant, has your projection improved or, gone up from what you had before the season?
Yeah, just slightly, like Anthony said, nothing too outlandish. I think 33 is a good, cap as far as an expedited fast track to get some more wins. I still feel more comfortable in the 30-win range. And I feel like teams are going to catch up, obviously, and learn how to play us. Because right now we're basically unbeatable.
With our 3 losses.
Right. Well, I mean, we just beat the Warriors, so I think that takes away the 3 losses.
And that's in the CBA.
Right. No, it's somewhere in the fine print. But yeah, I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna stick around 30 wins. And this thought just occurred to me: it's gonna hurt so bad when this team gets blown out for the first time, like thoroughly.
Yeah.
Everybody, Twitter is gonna be in an uproar. Luke's losing control of the locker room. Angelo's, spending too much time on Snapchat and needs to be in the gym.
The soap opera will continue. That's
right.
That's
Does
sure.
Nick Young love basketball anymore? It's going to be a mess.
I think so long as Luke doesn't cross his arms, I think Twitter would be fine. Like so long as those, like, if I were Luke and the Lakers are getting blown out, I would just walk around with my hands out like this, like, just, guys, I am not that guy. It's gonna be okay.
Just doing anything
head.
but crossing his arms. He could be doing the Macarena, but just except he wouldn't cross the arms.
Yeah, he's got to he's sitting there doing some version of jumping jacks that don't feature an arm cross up there. Yeah,
right. He's gonna be doing aerobics on the sidelines.
I just wait on the moment where he
anything but crossing my arms, guys. Yeah.
Where he crosses his arms and then there's a moment of realization. He real quickly takes them back and puts them in his pocket.
Could you?
Yeah, just imagine the look on the kids' faces if he does cross his arms. They all just fall over no!
Their eyes start twitching, PTSD starting to kick in.
And Jordan Clarkson comes over and holds D'Angelo Russell. It's it'll be okay. He didn't mean to. I swear, it'd be so great just to hear Mike Tirico's voice saying, "And it appears Luke Walton has started breakdancing on the sidelines."
Anyways, let's get
What were we talking about?
to get this
It's
back
lame.
on
Let's
track.
get weird.
We've already gotten plenty. Hani, you're one of the more probably level-headed fans of us.
Dear
Love
God, that's
At
really
me,
sad.
coward.
Do you are you still kind of holding true to your prediction? Like, do you think it's too early for us to kind of get ahead of ourselves here?
Okay, there's a couple of things. First, I think Anthony was close, but he forgot about the playoffs, so we're technically going 95-3. No, but the second thing is, yeah, I'm trying to be a little more pessimistic about it, just because I was pretty pessimistic about a midterm, and I got it back today, and I exceeded my expectations, and that felt great. So I'm raising my expectations a little bit based on the start, but I would say like 30 wins is a good average number, and if they go above that, then I'm going to be super happy. If not, then well, good enough.
Jacob, are you good?
Honey, you're going to be a phenomenal married person. Your expectations are going to be so low that it's going to be like, hey, this is actually really nice.
I'm going to put that on my dating profile.
Was once told I'd be a phenomenal married person.
But oh God, by an alcoholic married guy.
Like, we have no idea how happy Hani gets when he gets back to his house and like laundry's done unexpectedly.
Hey, my house is still standing. Nice.
Hey man, it's been a hard couple of weeks.
All right, Jacob, are you going to break the streak? Are you going to be the one that says the Lakers are going to the playoffs?
Well, I have to stick by my preseason prediction, which was under. So, I mean, I think that it's probably going to be more than, what was the over under 27.5?
Mm.
Yeah, I think so.
I think for right now, I'm still going to kind of stay right in that area, and I will kind of reevaluate after this next group of games. But I like I don't remember who said. I think Grant maybe said. I think like 24 or 25 is probably the floor at this point. I mean, this team is way better than any of us. I think really any of us kind of expected coming into this year.
Except Magic Johnson.
If I could, like, I don't know if you guys listened to the show today, but Pete made a really good point, and it was actually like statistically based as to why we could actually be pretty optimistic about this team. And it's that, one, they are missing a lot. I don't know what the numbers look like tonight, but heading into tonight, they're missing a lot of wide open shots, a lot of them, and they're which tells me that they're creating them, which again says that's something that seems sustainable, because it's not like all of a sudden they're going to go back to iso ball. And then the other thing is that they're creating those open looks without the counteraction in their offense, right? Or even in defensively, the principles that they're using are still pretty basic. So as the year goes along, now the entire league is going to continue to evolve their offenses. But for the Lakers, it's a brand new offense. So you have to think to yourself that it's a higher ceiling of what their offense and what their defense could potentially be. And if they're already creating good looks in their offense with basic principles on offense, then their offense could get better. And what'd you say their offense is at? Top 10 right now?
10th in offensive efficiency.
That's really impressive. So yeah, I think it's good that people are mitigating and tempering their expectations. But I think as the season goes along, watch those expectations start to rise, and I think they'll be fair to do so.
Yeah, and that was the thing that was so frustrating about the Oklahoma City game, was they had a lot of open shots that they just weren't making, and a lot of those misses were being turned into transition opportunities for Russell Westbrook and all those guys for the Thunder, which of course Westbrook can turn any shot into a fast break opportunity. But yeah, I mean, just I was encouraged, like you said, Anthony, the fact that they're creating these shots, they're creating these open looks, and eventually, the Lakers have enough shooting on this team that those are going to fall. It's just kind of a matter of time, and they're going to have nights like tonight where they fill it up. And I was kind of surprised. I was expecting, maybe around 20 in offensive efficiency when I looked that up. I was like, wow, they're 10th. I mean, they're in the top third of the league, in terms of offense.
Mm-hmm.
With such a young group and a brand new system. That's outstanding. It's been, as Luke Walton would say, phenomenal. So
they are I looked it up after this game. They're third in the league in pace as well, behind only Oklahoma City and Golden State, which I don't remember where we were last year, but it was certainly in the bottom third, which another big, huge contrast from last year. And one other thing to kind of add to Anthony's point about reason for optimism, on the defensive end, I mean, we're still fouling a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we're still winning these games and staying competitive. So if we can learn to stop fouling, I'd imagine that's kind of another step. And Luke made an interesting point after I think it was after the Pacers game, that even this early in the season, I mean, they're kind of gaining a reputation for being a team that fouls. So they're going to have to battle that a bit, but there are reasons for optimism on both ends of the floor, because they haven't really played all that great at times, and they're still, I mean, they haven't been blown out in any game yet this year. So
yeah, well, they're just finding ways to put themselves in a position to win games, in the fourth quarter. And I think with this group, that's really all you can ask. And hopefully that's something that they continue to do. I mean, hopefully we get more nights like tonight where it's like, they're putting the other team away, for a change. And there's no hope for the other team to, come back from 15, 20 points down late in the fourth quarter. So
I sent a message in our Slack, but I had this big smile on my face when, I don't remember what play it was, but the Warriors had to call a timeout because the Lakers were on too big of a run and the lead was getting too big tonight. And I just had a moment of realization where basketball's fun again. It's been a couple years since basketball has been this fun.
Yeah. This is just such a resilient bunch. And like we said, they've been on the other end of that where, they fall down 10, 15 points. And then, like Anthony was saying, before you know it, you blink, it's a 5-point game. They're right back in it. So it's almost unfamiliar territory, I think, after the last 2 or 3 years. It's just been a totally different bunch that we're seeing. So I was going to do fan questions, but this thing's kind of been derailed a couple times with some random conversations. So I'm going to cut it off here. I'd like to thank the entire Lakers Outsider staff for joining this podcast. No, but seriously, this was fun talking about, obviously a big win and a very fun Laker team that, I can't wait to see how the rest of the season unfolds, and it's nice to have that feeling again. So Anthony, Grant, Hani, and Jacob, I want to thank you guys for hopping on. I want to thank the people that watched along as we were talking about just everything that we talked about tonight, even some of the random stuff that derailed the podcast. But no, this was fun. We'll try and get back on this thing right after the next game, and schedule permitting. And thanks again, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.
Make the Lakers great again.